Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wife for Life with none other than your favorite marriage specialist, Michelle McElroy. And today, y'all, help me give it up for none other than Dr. Alicia Michelle Straughter.
Yes.
Hey, Alicia, how's it going?
I'm doing wonderful, Michelle. Our namesakes together, right?
Yeah, well, hey, so listen, I know you well, but everyone else doesn't know you as well. So let's tell them a little bit about yourself.
Well, so thank you again for inviting me to your podcast. I am a West Side girl,
Mm.
and I love saying that. I am straight from K-Town.
Ooh.
Went to a school, elementary school called Daniel Webster, then went to Marshall Commandos for a while as a cheerleader and made that journey down to Jones, this college prep now, but it's Jones Metropolitan at that time. And then, so again, raised up on the West Side. So, I'm a West Side girl, so I understand the hood.
Uh-huh.
And that journey took me to Loyola University. And from there, I had 2 degrees from Loyola, and then I have a PhD in business. And so I am, what I would say, grateful to God to make it out of the West Side because, I was deep in the hood. And I love it because it taught me a lot.
Mm.
And so I'm excited to be here.
Oh my goodness. All those degrees, I can't help but ask you what or who inspired you growing up to be all who you are today?
I would honestly say it was, see, my father used to work at Loyola.
Okay.
Um, and I didn't see many people in my immediate family went to college, but I had friends
Mm.
around me where I was working. I used to work at Marshall Field for years, and they was in college. I had older friends, and I was like, "What is this thing about college?" But I knew I wanted something more,
Mm.
and I would go back to say my godmother. I would do a lot of things with them. We went to these little tea things and, just how to be a lady and young girl. And I was a believer. And then I was going to church with my grandmother, and my godmother's sister.
Mm.
And there was something put in me at a young age. I was never perfect. But now in hindsight, I kept saying to myself, I just wanted more.
Mm.
Uh, I just wanted more, and I knew it was more. I just didn't know what it looked like because I used to think I was going to be a model.
Okay.
I was like, I guess I was tall then, with these models now are very tall. And so my godmother had like a modeling school. So I did a lot of things outside of the neighborhood. So that's one.
Yeah.
And then so that's where to me, when you get started seeing that, okay, it's more to life than the circle that you grew up in or the environment where you grew up in. So I almost did everything outside of my neighborhood,
Mm.
everything. And to the point they was teasing me because they used to call me Miss America. I don't know why. I have no idea. But in hindsight, I can see because I was doing things outside of the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I really was not trying or not, and I think my parents allowed me to do that. And then thirdly or fourthly, my father was kept saying, I want you guys to go to school and go to school. And out of my siblings, it's 2 of us now. My brother passed away a couple years ago.
Right.
I was the only one that took advantage of that blessing. Again, I didn't realize it to now, but I knew it was an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
because where he worked, and I was the only one that took advantage of that. Again, coming off the West Side public school, public high school,
Mm-hmm.
it was not easy going into a big university.
Yeah.
It was not. And it wasn't until I got into that university where it's very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not diverse. It was predominantly white, and I was oftentimes the only Black in the classroom.
Mm.
So again, coming off the West Side in K-Town from a public school, I was lost.
Mm.
It didn't hit me until I said I really didn't learn anything in public school.
Wow.
It
Wow.
it hit me that first year when they told me I had to take a semester out to bring my grades up. And I said, "Oh, okay. I'm gonna stay out for a whole year and go get my grades up."
Mm.
That was God still on my side.
Yeah.
I went to Harold Washington College. I did some
Mhm.
classes at Triton because they said, you just one semester, you got to go and, fix this. I had like a D or something, or two Ds. I don't know. I probably had a whole lot of Ds for the counselor to tell me that.
Yeah.
African American male counselor I had, very pleasant. I can remember the day like it was just yesterday. I wasn't lost for I didn't get angry. In reverse, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not gonna just stay out one semester and get this one grade or these two grades up. I did all my electives,
Mm.
or my what you would call your preliminary class, like your
Yeah.
English, your math, and all of that,
Mhm.
because those were the things that you could transfer over.
Yep.
So now, oh, this I'm gonna do them all. Now I know, and I was like, okay, I'm on this path,
Mhm.
but that's again when I realized I didn't learn anything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's difficult going from public school to
Absolutely.
college or universities. Um, I just want you to I just want to say that you are really onto something when you talk about having that exposure outside of your neighborhood or the circle of your neighborhood, especially if your neighborhood was impoverished, you know. Um, a lot of times we grew up in that because I grew up in this atmosphere like that as well. And that's all we think there is to life. But life is so much bigger and broader than that small circle. And I just remember, my friends identifying me as something, commonly we would refer to currently as bougie or something like that
Right.
because of the exposure that my family gave me, you know? But I'm so grateful for that because I think when you could see more, you feel like you can be more.
Yes.
You know, and so, yeah, I totally connect with that and relate to that. Um, but also, wow, I just wanna say wow because there was this spirit of determination in you
Yes.
that desire, like you said, for more, or maybe even God, the Holy Spirit in you saying you was created for more, you were purposed for more. And then taking that what some would say that L, taking that L at Loyola, and going over to the community college, but not allowing that to discourage you. Is that a characteristic or trait that you feel like you got from any of your family members?
I would say, obviously at that time, they had to send the letter to your home, and my dad was like, well, hey, it's just one semester till you go and you get your fix this grade or how they, was worded at the time. It was so long ago. But part of me kept saying to myself, and I think early on again, I was getting in church. Now I wasn't always saved, like I wasn't really saved, but I was close enough to understand what prayer meant, though.
Mm.
Um, I wasn't good at understand prayer and living the word out as a teenager or young
Yeah.
adult. That needs to be equally the same. But
Mm.
um, I would tell myself to say these are for dummies.
Mm.
I would just keep telling myself that. That was back then.
Mm.
And then I'm not a dummy. I knew I wasn't a dummy. And that whatever I missed or didn't understand when I was going through high school and elementary school shouldn't have an effect on me now to make it better. And so what do I need to learn and get better in? And I had to motivate myself.
Yes.
It was all motivation now, self-motivation. And then having people around you, like my parents to keep pushing you on.
Mhm.
And understanding then, and like I didn't know it, you need to know how there needs to be some parameters, the separation of things. There was a lot of actions that I needed to take. I can't blame anybody,
Mhm.
you know, and I needed to accept that once I start to carve out what I knew was best for me in order for me to get my life better and to be successful in school, because I knew going to school was going to take me.
Yeah.
And I had friends that was at college. It seemed like they was fun. You know, they was in school for a long time. I didn't understand why, but now when I was in, I was like, oh, y'all was partying a lot. 'Cause I was partying with them. It's safe.
Yep.
But so it really comes down for me is understanding what prayer really meant,
Mm.
building a relationship with God at a young age, and ownership. So determination and ownership of it, and understanding you got to change your friends.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you got to change your friends sometimes,
Mhm.
or you got to put some people on hold. And if they there when you're done, and if they not, you okay with it. And I just felt like back when I didn't really lose friends. I gained some great people through the course of that part of my life,
Mhm.
and those who remained.
Yeah.
And that means they were always, lifelong friends. You talk about friendships. It's not everybody you talk to every day in and day out, and for
Right.
years. It's those that have been in your corner or just knew you, and when they see you, they act like, "Oh my God, I ain't seen you in years." Absolutely, you're still a friend
Yeah.
in that way. And so I just think it's a combination of a lot of things. But for me, I would definitely say it was me developing my spiritual connection
Mhm.
with God, because that's the only way I made it.
Yeah.
I,
I will say.
yeah, because where my house, well, former house where I grew up in, we was by an alley, and so I have to tell you what I had to go through
Mm.
when I was getting up to go to school, because the app was more like a drive through kind of too. So, but drug dealings happen in the middle of the night because I
Yeah.
can hear where my bedroom was at.
Whew.
Needles on the ground sometimes,
Mm.
or all kind of little stuff. Or then they found somebody in a garbage can 2, 3 houses down on the, because it was like a T-shaped alley.
Oh,
So I had to get up in the morning, kind of run through that so I can kind of go to the next street to get to the so that's the environment. Or somebody getting shot behind elementary school.
yeah.
No, so I'm not saying it was hard. I'm not saying it was easy, but that's my lifestyle that I had to go through to get to where I'm at today.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. I love my neighborhood where I grew up in,
Mhm.
because it made me what I am today. So I understand when I see young people, when I go and volunteer
Mhm.
and within the inner city schools. None of us had it easy, but it's that determination, that accountability, and that connection, what I would say, to God.
Yeah. Yeah. Woo, that's strong right there. That is so strong. And it's just resonating with me that you have to lose something to gain something,
Yes.
you know? And a lot of times it's lose our old self to gain this new, better version. And only the best way to do that is with the Lord. So, amen to that.
Yes.
Tell us, what did you get your, bachelor's and master's degree in? Because I'm assuming that's what you did at Loyola. You got a bachelor's
Yes.
and a master's. Okay, what'd you get those in?
Yes, so my undergrad was communications.
Oh,
I know,
okay.
right? It's like, and then my master's in organization development and a little bit of HR. And so, it was, again, a plan that I had no idea. And so here I am with a communications degree, a master's in organization development, and then my PhD is in business. And I sat back a couple of years ago and said, nobody did this, orchestrate this, but you got. Because I look back and say, interesting how that happened.
Wow.
So I can understand how effectively you need to be communicating, whether it's digital now,
Mhm.
in writing or presentations or whatever that may be. And then understand how business needs to be organized with the HR and the development part. And then, understanding business and how to run a business.
Yeah,
I didn't plan that. I didn't plan that.
yeah,
But I knew that I wanted to do something to help people. I always kept saying that when I was growing. I was always that one that was helping within my family and supporting them and just taking on things. But when I sat back and I said, it was only probably like maybe 3, 4 years ago. I said, God, you got jokes. I said, look what you, I said, look what you've done.
yeah.
I looked at my degrees and said, look what you've done. A girl off the west side of
ASAP.
Chicago
Mm,
in the hood had to go past drugs, all of the above. You know, sometimes the people not liking you when you were growing up because that was nothing that dynamic is special about me. In the sense of, I just knew I wanted more,
yeah.
and I was okay with that. So you have to imagine what you have to go through, the
Mm,
peer pressure. And I said, and look what you've done.
yeah. No, it's nothing short of amazing.
Yes.
But that's our guy, right?
Yes.
So this speaking of helping people, that makes me think about how we met.
Yeah.
Where you were helping a nonprofit help others. Tell us a little bit about that nonprofit you were working for at the time.
Well, I have to say that, and I tell my former boss every time we talk, Stedman Graham, thank you. And when I first started doing that, when he closed down the organization, he didn't understand why I was saying that. So I'm gonna give you my journey, how I made it to work for him.
Okay.
I was at Loyola University and I had a summer role at Loyola out in Maywood, where my father worked in. And my professor at Loyola, I like called her and just find out what my books were for the next, because I had it for another class. And it
Okay.
was my last class for my semester. At that time, my rhythm was flowing. I got it. I was like A's, B's, don't even play with me. I'm studying. I ain't got time for nothing. I didn't get engaged in nothing. I was like, when I got back in there, it was all game on at that
Mm,
point. It was destined for me to, I'm going to get completed.
yeah.
And that part of that was maturity. I was at 23, 24, something like that, 22. And so I said, she never called me back.
Mm,
So I'm going down the hall, the first day of class, it was packed, and I see her. I'm like, Sally, that was her name.
uh-huh.
I said, you never called me back. What was the book? She said, hey, Alicia, I was thinking about you all summer. I have an internship for you.
Oh.
I was like, an internship. In my mind, so late, I need my book. Class.
You was focused.
Yes. And she said, it's going to be great for you. I said, oh, okay, an internship.
Mhm.
So when class was over, she pulled me to the side. She told me to wait till after class was over. Again, I'm still saying, I don't even have the book for your class, but I'm good. If you don't think I need this book. And she started to tell me, this is all true,
Mm,
what the internship. She said, I'm working for this organization. And she was doing it like part-time because she was a part-time teacher. Now you learned that she wasn't full-time.
mhm,
And we go into the neighborhood schools and we're gonna help them because she made that a part of the class.
mm,
Excuse me. I said, oh, okay. So I go and tell my father when I finish my last week or 2 weeks working out in Maywood
mhm.
that I'm going to take this free internship. Free.
Oh, boy.
It was free.
Okay.
I wasn't getting paid to leave the part-time because I could have stayed. So here's a power in decision making and understanding where you're going.
Mm,
I was working there for the summer part-time at Loyola. I could have stayed there and try to get something full-time so they could pay for my master's. This is what I said, I'll pay for my own.
mm.
And so I want to take this is what I told my dad because he was like, "You're not going into the projects and them schools over and over." To this day. And so I was having lunch with my dad and some women that worked there that day, and they was like, "Well, oh no, that's good." I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do it." I said, "Because they look like me, the kids out that I want to help."
Mhm.
Again, this is me at 22, 23,
Yeah.
and I said I could take the risk.
Okay.
What can be the worst thing can happen, right?
Mhm.
And my parents did not, because I'm going into areas, and that internship turned into 20 years
Right.
working for Stedman Graham. And he said, "You're not going anywhere." When the internship was supposed to be over,
Yeah.
you're not going anywhere. And I I didn't see it coming.
Mm.
Certainly that was God's hands all over it again. I didn't know it then.
Yeah.
I just knew that I wanted to help people. I
Yeah.
didn't know what that meant or what that looked like. And let me go back. My first internship before this one was at Mount Sinai Hospital in
Okay.
the HR department.
Mm.
And I said, every good thing must come to an end. 'Cause
Yeah.
they wanted me to stay.
Mhm. And that was very different.
Yes.
Right? Mhm.
It was definitely gonna be up in the area of HR, and, I was like, "Oh, no, this coming to an end."
Yeah. Yeah.
They really I mean, they had meetings and trying to convince me, "What can we do?"
Oh,
I'm still young, I'm in my 20s. "No, I'm about to take this in my mind. I'm about to go over here and take another risk over here and get this free, internship."
yeah. But when you took it, did you know it was Stedman Graham's, nonprofit? And
No, get that's her. So I'm now walking down Sweet Leaf because I had another class, still, and I was like, she didn't really tell me his name or anything. So let me go back there. I didn't know. It wasn't until I got the internship or was, fill out the paper. She brought me in, and I was like, who is I didn't really know who he was.
Mhm.
And I was walking to my car after a class, and my friends, it's a young lady at the time I was going to school with, we were a park at the same place. She said, you don't know who he is? I was like, "No, I don't know who, I don't know who he was." She was like, "Oh, no, that's me and that's with Oprah." I
Oh,
still didn't know what she was. So I had to go home that night, not, and I just started, oh, okay, that's who he is.
yeah.
So I did not know who he was. I didn't. To this day, I didn't know who he was because let me say why. It wasn't important to me to find out who he was. It was what my professor said that I would have the ability to do
Wow.
is to help kids. We could go in there and we did a lot of fun stuff with that was our class.
Mm.
So we were doing fun stuff, but we were really doing work with her through what she was doing with the part-time. So it was so fun.
Wow.
I was like, what a way to end my last class for the last semester
Yeah.
with her like this. And it was incredible, but I didn't know who he was.
Mm. That is insane. And so you did an internship and then, that relationship extended for 20 years
20
of,
years.
and
It's still going.
this nonprofit?
Um, Athletes Against Drugs.
Athletes Plus Trust.
Athletes Against Drugs.
So what he would do was reach out to teams and ask them to send or recommend some athletes to volunteer. How did that work?
Yeah, so so I started as a program coordinator and obviously worked my way up to really running his organizations with an S, in which people didn't know that. And other profit business that he had. So much was on me, and the people didn't know that. But what mainly what the nonprofit was doing was we would go into the inner city schools, and that's how the connection with my professor at the time, because she was going into the schools as a part timer for them, and so we had like when I first got there, it was like 10 schools, and they were all over the city. Hispanic, blacks, in the projects down there, on State Street, all up and down that road, out way out south in Roseland. And so we had a curriculum. Obviously, we did sports with them, just mainly again athletes against drugs. And then we were connected to a lot of sports teams and what people would say famous people, but they were just ordinary people to me, and that's how I treated them, and that's how most of them treated me. Because at that time, once I became got on board, I started saying, "Oh, no, there's so much more we get ready to do." And so over the years, the impact got greater
Yeah.
because then I started realizing how much that we can do with his brand and his name. And so we did so much more than just sports with them. But that was predominantly what we needed to do. But that education piece came in, the leadership piece came in, again, the curriculum and bringing in speakers. Once in a while, I would call on all the corporate people and okay, I need you at this school to speak for half an hour, 45 minutes. Oh, okay, I need you over at that school. And it was just one. And then we started tutoring and then I started bringing in staff to help and to be at the school. It was, it was 20 years of phenomenal work and opportunity that I had no idea how God orchestrated. I didn't have any idea who he was. And it was never about me working for a famous person.
Yeah.
It was about me at the time getting his brand out of connecting his heart and passion to the community.
Yeah.
And we just didn't do stuff in Chicago, over a period of time. And then I started connecting us. Every time there was an NBA All-Star game,
Mhm.
I was head up in there with Athletes Against Drugs, getting into communities, connecting some of the players within that community every time. And he was looking at me like, I said, it's what we got to do,
Yeah.
And so we started reaching kids all over.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I can attest to your heartbeat of doing this, of why, your why. Because I just remember when I first met you at one of you guys' fundraisers that somehow Ray got invited to.
That's
And we've been like attached since because
right.
it was never about celebrity for you. It was about helping people. And I think once you found out that's what we do as well,
That's right.
it was the cohesion just happened naturally. So that's really cool. And did I hear you say you still do some work with him today, even still?
Absolutely. But let me go back for
Okay.
a second.
Mm.
I got to talk about your husband.
Aw.
I remember one day at what I think it was the golf outing, and I forgot how we met. And sometimes, not you, your husband, because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
But I do remember saying to him, "Can you come up?" Because I'm not going to be shy by asking about anything about doing something for our kids. So,
Mhm.
I remember that it was one of the golf outings, and he said, "No problem." And ever since then, if I called your husband when I was working at Athletes Against Drugs, or emailed or however I had to get in contact with him, it was never a no.
Yeah.
Very pleasant. And I would tell that to anybody. And I was like, okay, I'll handle, I have my list. I know if I can call Ray, such and such, I don't have a
Yeah.
problem. It's a yes and one time.
Yeah.
No drama. And so for me, and most people don't understand it, when those guys was doing that, that helped me make my job easier.
Mm-hmm.
It was never about, oh, she knows all these athletes or these people and everything. They knew if I was calling them or emailing and asking, it was always business and it was always about, okay, the kids and Stedman, really, at this point, because it meant so much. So I have to say, that's Jermaine. I got to talk about Jermaine, girl.
Thank you.
And then I get to meet you and I have to tell the story because I will always see him. And then, I probably saw you there, right? But I was like, that's Ray's what? She friends and family too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it meant a lot to me
Yeah.
for him to support the efforts of the organization, the
Yeah.
way he did it.
Yeah.
Because in that space, sometimes it could just be a lot.
Yeah.
And so I have to say that publicly, how I appreciate the friendship of your husband and now you, obviously, and just us as we all growing. So I got to say that.
Yeah. Don't get me teary-eyed now. I still gotta keep faith.
I do. I just people don't understand. This is the value of appreciating friendships, and we have to do that more.
Yeah,
We have to do that more.
agreed.
So yes,
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. And yeah, I am a blessed woman. He gets it. We're all about community as well. And so
yes,
to us, we view it as an opportunity,
yes,
not as a burden. God
yes.
gives you a platform for a reason. And we just have to open our eyes and our hearts to what that is. And so yeah, we count it a blessing to be able to give back to the kids because we know what we would have enjoyed having when we were young, or for some people, what they did have when they were young. And so, yeah, so thank you for saying that. I will make sure he watches this episode.
I know, right? I know that's right. Uh, and so, yes, getting back to that question, I still talk to our former boss and still do stuff for him. Obviously, it's on higher levels again with just leadership,
Mhm.
and curriculum, and then really connect them to some special projects if possible. And it's ongoing. I mean, we're family at this point. I mean, we touch base all the time. He's even supportive of my Women's Chronicle. It's just it doesn't end. And some people, because he told me a lot, and our former chairman, he's passed away, but it was always the three of us sometime, and they really took me under their wings as men, to teach me a lot and a lot what I have learned. And I was really telling him that, and he what? No, you didn't. I said, I didn't believe I could do all this on my own. I'm 12 years in business. And I had to tell him that. And he thought, he said, girl, you,
You fooled me. That's probably what he was thinking.
he's like, no, I was like, that's when he was closing things down.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, it's like 20 years. And like, what am I going to do? And I'm looking at him. And he was like, oh, yeah, you could do this. And you could do this. You were doing all this for me. And I'm looking at him like, dude, I need a job.
Yeah.
Really, this was really how I was looking at it. He was just talking. And I'm looking at him, why are you talking?
Yeah.
He saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. That's my whole point where I'm going.
Wow.
And that's why I have to thank him
Yeah.
because he saw me differently. I'm from I'm from the West Side. I didn't grow up saying, oh, I'm gonna be this big entrepreneur.
Right.
No, I was raised, get a job, go to school, get a job, pay your bills, get you a car, save your money. I'm just telling you that's how I was raised
Yeah.
and taught. It wasn't, no, 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 we're gonna, and I didn't see entrepreneurs in my family. Let me go
Yeah.
there. I
No.
was the first person in my family to graduate from college.
Mm. Wow.
My immediate family to graduate college. Then the first one to get the master's in my family, period.
Yeah.
Let's just say the PhD, what you already know.
Right.
And so he saw something in me that I didn't see. I
Yeah.
just think how I'm going to make it.
Mm.
But God had a place.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. So, talk about next steps because I know after that the doctorate came, you built a business, etc. Tell us about what were your next steps. How did you navigate that transition?
Yeah, and so and let me just put this on record. That transition was not easy.
Yeah.
I have to keep saying I was somewhere for 20 years.
Yeah.
First of all, that was unknown, and then it was a nonprofit, um, and so I have built a lot there,
Hmm.
and I had to figure it out,
Yeah.
you know. But I say this again. I said, God, you got jokes, because he knew, and my former boss said, he said I needed to close. Well, obviously, it was moving everything, right?
Hmm.
And, it was shutting down and they was moving everything in California. He said, I wouldn't keep it open for it. He kept it open for me
Yeah.
because he saw the work that I was doing.
Mhm.
And then why would I keep it open for any other reason if I wasn't going to be there?
Yeah.
He was saying to me, and I was thinking, oh, well, that was nice. I didn't know thought about that.
Mhm.
I didn't know he thought that way either. And it was because everything I was doing, because he said, I would have closed it a long time ago.
Yeah.
But and that sound all great. It's still, I really didn't know what I wanted to do.
Mm.
again, I'm still in shock that change is happening.
Yeah.
And I kind of see myself sometimes, change don't really bother me
Mhm.
because I always like to say, but at that point in time, at the beginning of January, like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And at that time, talk to my parent, my father, and at the time the chairman, late chairman, and just you got to have mentors at this point
Right.
and the right people. And then I looked out my window, March of 2013, in my office now,
Mhm.
and I said, God, what do you want me to do?
Mm.
How about that?
Mm.
And he said, well, start your own business. You already have a tax ID, and I was doing stuff on the side. I got literally, this is a true story. I
Mhm.
got out of my seat, went into it's this cabinet right behind me, desk cabinet, files, pulled it out. I said, okay, AMS consultant. Still didn't know what I said. Well, because here again, you're a Black woman looking for a job
Yeah.
and come on. And I was still in school and getting my PhD.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, I got to finish up that. I still wasn't going to be deterred. I was just going to get that done. And he was like, oh, well, I'm going to free up your time so you get this done. This is
Mm.
what I'm saying God was doing to me because exactly what happened. And I had spent, almost a year and a half trying to figure out what a business was that I needed to do and finish school. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what you have in plan for me. Again, still trying to figure out, okay, am I gonna do HR? And then people saw me just as a victim. That was just one part of what I did.
Right. Right.
I said they didn't see me running the board meeting on behalf
Mm.
of my boss, getting all that together. They didn't see staff. They didn't see they didn't see none of that. The rising board, we going to these meetings, raising this money. They just saw the fun, what they would call the fun stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so people was like, can you do an event? I said, God, this is not, now I'm gonna do it because I need a check. But this is not who I am, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
just a part of it.
Yeah.
And somehow, some way, he showed up
Mm.
and I started getting one contract after another, and then this, and then that, and here it is. And I'm gonna tell you, I didn't even know I had made it to 9 years until a couple of years ago. I went to somebody else's celebration for 10 years,
Uh-huh.
and I just went on my LinkedIn page afterwards and said, well, I mean, yeah, I've been in this because after that, I took my mind off of trying to figure out, this thing, you got to get past 5 years,
Yeah.
and all of that. And it was so much, the transition by far was not easy, but it wasn't hard, but it was now
Mhm.
in hindsight, it was what God was taking me through a journey. I had to learn more about who I was.
Yeah.
I had to finish my PhD. I had to understand what I needed to do to build a business, how it was going to look, what it was going to be doing, and
Yeah.
how many things that I was able to do, and start connecting with a whole nother level
Mm.
of people.
Mhm.
I do all of that in 12 years.
Yeah.
And how I started is not what I have now. It was just the footprint and the footwork that God told me to start putting in place March of 2013. And then now, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm almost 10 years into this.
Mm.
When I finally looked, when I went to, it was back in 2021, 2022. And I was like, I'm almost 10 years
Yeah.
because I kept grinding and figuring it out, networking, trying to do it. And by far, as a Black woman that's educated and now an entrepreneur, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It is not easy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. The work you've done has been great. I know one of the businesses that you worked for was the National Basketball Players, Retired Players Association. So yeah, I definitely have been seeing your journey and applauding your journey along the way. And I know for solopreneurs,
Yes.
entrepreneurs,
Well, we call it.
the
Yes.
difficulty and the challenges that come along with that. tell us, at some point you decided to build this podcast with Eileen. Tell us about
Yes.
that. How did that come about?
Oh my gosh. So this and listen, this is all true stories. And I'm so grateful to God that I didn't have no idea when I started doing this podcast, but it's all orchestrated by God. That's how I feel. So in 2019, I had just finished a contract at one of the municipalities I had. And well, that's another story. Let's just say I'm not doing any more municipalities. Let's go there. God has
Okay.
pulled me up from that.
Oh,
And I'm in a cab going to and then so one of the former advisory board members calls me and at the straw crying and all of this. She's at the airport. She said, I really need you. And I said, sure. Can you come in and help direct? Not it was like her event was like in November. She called me in October. Can you late end of September? Can you come and help do my 25th anniversary at the Dre? Because I just let my director go for events. I'm like, sure. I walked into the fire on that, but that's another story.
yeah.
So I'm in a cab going to the Drake to meet with the director, and I told sure I'm gonna do it. Eileen calls, she texts me,
Mhm.
and she says, I got an idea. And I was like, okay, well, I'm in.
Just like that.
Yes. So a week went by. She said, I got an idea. I'm gonna call you. And all I said, okay, I'm in. I said, okay, it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Now we went to grad school together. I said, hey, what's up? I'm in the parking lot this 2 weeks later at the site I was going because I told her I'd come in and work for it, get this event up because it was important to her and the organization.
Mhm.
I said, before I go up, let me call her
Yeah.
and say, listen, what did I say? I'm in for it, right? I just said, okay. Because, see, Dr. Eileen Timmons is good for that.
Mm.
Like, if you call and say, I'm in. Because, some people just know you don't have to do anything but just, I got you, and that's it.
Yep.
So, after she comes, she says, oh, I forgot to call you. I was like, she said, we're going to do a podcast. I said, we're
Okay.
going to do a podcast?
Mm-hmm.
I said, she started explaining because she was on the podcast. And I was like, okay. So I'm like, oh, shoot. So I said, I'm in for a podcast. I had no idea what a podcast was going to be doing or nothing. We sat down, and this is all a true story.
Mhm.
After that, like 2 or 3 weeks later, actually it was like November or something. We worked, and she's a prayer woman too. And I'm like, what's the name of this podcast? We have a name. We had to come. So we were sitting there trying to figure out that. And she got an idea, we put it together, and it was Solo the Leader podcast. Now, this was before podcast was really taking off.
Mm.
I mean, really, we had no idea what to do. So then she said, podcast. So I started texting, my audio guy, texting this, texting that, and she's looking because she knows how I work too. Okay, we got that done. We got the name, we're finna do this. So we started recording. It's like, okay, we got, let's start buying stuff. And then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
I said, God, you still got chunks.
Mm-hmm.
And so we was like, cause we was just going to work and inviting people down there, sitting in person.
Mm-hmm.
And, we had, athletes and all of that. And God said, oh no, and I had this pandemic. So we was like, well, Zoom is here. And fast forward, I mean, we were calling out, everybody we could to get on there. We didn't have no problem. And I had no idea where we're going with this. And I just told her, I said, God told Noah to build.
Mm.
He told Noah to build. And they was laughing at him, but didn't it rain?
Yeah.
So I said, we're just going to build.
Yeah.
And she knows, and we compliment one another. So she respects how I am,
Yeah.
and she has her greatness, I have my greatness. And she was like, okay, because I'm like, nah, I'm in. Girl, I done said I'm in, and we had no structure. I'm a structured person.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
organized.
Yeah.
And girl, we had the logo and everything, and we are over 100-some episodes.
Wow.
And the transition of that,
Wow.
again, is amazing. The quality of people. We didn't have people from Harvard. I mean, ask me celebrities, everybody on there.
I love it.
It's not our doing, it's all of his doing because the leadership, and we knew that, and because what we studied in our PhD programs,
Mhm.
it's never going to change what leadership means to this organization,
Yeah.
to businesses, to schools, in fact, to this world. It
Yep.
is an international issue and topic
Mhm.
defined in so many ways.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, look, I say, God, you got jokes again. The impact of what he want us to do with this podcast, and it's all over the world.
Mm.
Who would have known? We had no, I'm telling you, Michelle, we had no idea what we were doing at the beginning.
Wow. That's
And so
awesome.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's phenomenal. And what is really awesome about it too is even though COVID happened and it happened to a lot of businesses,
Yes.
it did not stop the
It
train
did not so.
forward of the Soul of a Leader podcast.
Yes.
So yeah, man, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'm appreciative that that's something too that when we have our business meetings
Yes.
that we connect, that we can share, our
Yes.
Lord. But I really like the beauty of what you're saying about Eileen and how beautiful it is when you can have a person in your life that you can be personally and professionally into each other's lives and create something like this model, this podcast model, without even having a lot of context about exactly this, because both of you guys know your work ethic
Yes.
and you know, you like you said, your skill sets. And hey, and I'm always about seeing women win because we have our own challenges in this world. So to see you guys come together and get along, which culturally they always try to say I don't. Thank
Yes.
you for proving culture
Oh, absolutely.
we absolutely can get along. And when we do get along and we work together, it's
Yes.
still something amazing and powerful and meaningful. And
Yes.
so yeah, so I love that Soul of a Leader title. That's phenomenal. If y'all didn't know about it, now you know though.
Exactly.
Now tell me about your latest venture though, because you are a mover and a shaker. And man, if that's not inspiring and encouraging to somebody, I don't know what is. Because what I'm seeing from you is it's never too late. You're never too old to try something new and different and exciting and fun and to give God a yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the kind words. I don't really see myself as a mover or shaker, but thank you. But
Yes, you
I and yes, I'm in my late 50s. Actually, I'm gonna say I'm 58 because I'm grateful to God. I will be 59 this year.
Woo-hoo.
And and I'm grateful, because my brother didn't make it to 59 or 58. And so, and many more, right, that I've grown up with or in my family.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that it is important to understand who you are and with God, um, it was our faith conference. I go to Living Word Christian Center.
Okay.
Pastor Bill Winston. And we had our faith conference. It was 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. So I'm going to the mailbox because I know I told you the story because I started crying. And I hear do a magazine. And I'm like, I just walked to my mailbox. I said, can't be so, and I go in my mailbox and I'm like, oh, it's an HR magazine in there, right? And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm walking back at that closet, do a magazine. I said, who you talking to me, God? Because now I know their voice. I mean, I knew I heard their voice when I was walking in. Kid you not. And I hit the steps because the way to get in my house, you got to get up and down these steps. And I was like, oh, you talking to me. I go sit down, true story, sit down at my desk. After I looked at that, I said, oh, this is a nice magazine. And just put it down, right? And I sat down and I had did a book and I turned around and looked at the book because I said he talking to me because I know his voice. And it's the same way. all the time. So, you just know it. And I said, okay, well, let's just put this together, right? I'm not asking any other questions. I said, okay, because I keep hearing you saying it because I said, who, me? And he said, do a magazine. And I sat down, laid it all out, and I'm like, okay, got this all laid out. So I started saying, oh, okay, let me call this person, call this person, call this person,
Good.
and then put the structure together. And I think I ended up telling, I said, I have called everyone, and not one asked me any questions about nothing but says yes.
Yeah.
And then I got a look like, okay, wait a minute. They all said yes. Oh my God, what? And I said, okay, here's what I need. Everybody got everything in an email.
Mhm.
And when I got the, and I was like, well, who do you want on the cover? Because I mean, like, now everybody's saying yes.
Yeah.
I called Adrian Johnson
Mm.
and said, okay, I'm doing this magazine. You're going to be on the cover. I know what you have been doing for Wogi Brown.
Mm.
And I said, I'm sorry. Don't enough people understand what you're doing and don't know what you're doing. And you need to get the word out.
Yeah.
She on the phone crying.
Mm.
I'm like, Adrian, what did I say?
Yeah.
She said, no, I have been praying
Mm.
to God. Send me somebody to help or something. I said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I said, no, I mean this. I said, God told me this is divine. I have done a magazine. Well, when I was working with Stedman, we did a whole lot of things. So I understood what needed to happen and getting together. What I didn't understand is just like, okay, what do you want this to be? And all, and so now I'm starting to, because if I get an assignment, it is for me to get it done. I don't ask no questions other than, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to do it? What's that? Because now I'm at the point I have to get this done the way you foresee it
Yeah.
and give me the vision as I go. And that's what God's been doing. And when I put Adrian on there and talked about Wogi Brown, she was already doing stuff in Ghana. And let me go back. I met Adrian like I have met a whole lot of great people through Athletes Against Drugs because she was a sponsor.
Yeah.
And we have become, I mean, she's like a mentor, friend, good friend.
Mm.
And so she retired from Coca-Cola and was always supporting me there. And I was supporting her through her other journeys with all these girls she was working over it, and God is still doing it.
Wow.
Why not be the first one?
Yeah.
And I sat back and did it. And now it's like, I said, God, wait a minute, this is a whole year. Because it's fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And that's what he wanted. I said, okay, I'm gonna do fourth quarter. Let me get my feet wet in this. I understood the vision.
Yeah.
It was in. I said, oh, platform. Okay, not only do you want me to create content to impact women all over the world,
Mhm.
girls and women who are struggling, we need quality content. Oh, I know a whole lot of inspirational women, quality women, intelligent women, brilliant women, wealthy women, whatever you want to call it, I know them.
Yes.
I got them all. And I kept email calling and I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, I see what you're doing. And so, when I always send it to the editors and everybody, and I say, what you see, what you feel.
Mm.
And when I get, oh, this is great, I said, okay, you're working, God. Because people always say, well, they'll call me, okay, I'm going to do it. What do you want me to write about? Oh, no, 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 no. I don't tell you what to write.
Yeah.
I don't do that. That ain't my job. I gave you everything in that email, what you need to send that to me. The rest is left up to you because the reason why, that's not what God wants me. I don't need to control what I want you to write. What I want you to do is share your stories
Mm.
and your inspiration and your impact and your intelligence
Yeah.
and what you do. And when I pull it all together, it becomes what God is making it.
Mm.
The most phenomenal piece of a magazine that you can read at any given time. Because it's going to last. Because it is going to reach people.
Yeah.
Women. All women. So it's not just for Black women and Hispanics. It's going to reach them all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the intent of that. Because we don't want to just, and I'm not competing with anybody else.
Mhm.
And that wasn't the divine order. It says create a magazine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
it's
what's the name of the
we're doing
magazine?
the women who empower.
I love that. I love that.
Yes, you are a senior contributor, right? Okay.
Ooh, well, thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Yes, and I appreciate that. Thank you for that opportunity to share my knowledge with
Yes.
your readers. I really appreciate that. Excuse me. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate the platform and the opportunity, and working on my writing chops as well.
Yeah.
So, so Wife for Life is the name of the podcast, right? And I know, and maybe some of the viewers and listeners have figured out, because in your intro you did not introduce a husband, that currently you're not married. Um, Tell us, why aren't you married right now?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Uh,
I think that I had to eventually make up in my mind that that's just probably not for me. I had to do that myself.
mhm.
Um, and many people probably say, "Why she's not married?" Well, I made it. Now let me just say this. Let me go back. I have been engaged twice.
Okay.
I've been engaged twice,
Mhm.
two different people. And this is what I could see. At 58, you can say this. Engagements are meant to be broken, not marriages.
Mm,
And most people don't understand that. And so when people are close to me, when they know why. If I say it's off, it's off. They understand me to know why.
mhm.
Because I can make a decision and I can be comfortable with that decision. And I don't have to feel like I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying I'm an angel, but I do know what's meant for me and what God wants me to have.
Yeah.
And so, and then marriages is, if you want to create and, have families. And at that point, and I made the decision when I went to get my PhD, and we go a little bit back, that, okay, I don't think I'm going down this road of marriage and having kids.
Mm,
And so I'll just focus on my career. So that was that decision of that. And then later down, oh, well, I mean, God, if you want me to get married, you probably would send me somebody. And well, okay, well then that's not down the journey because I can see where I keep continuing to go. I'm okay with it because I think you're making me okay with who I am as a woman. Now I got male friends galore. I mean, my friends be like, girl, you just know so many me. I don't know why I know all these men. I just think I like them all. They like me. Now, I'm not saying anything other than I have a lot of male friends. How about that?
yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
But they all respect me.
Mm,
Let's go there. And I don't, nobody crosses boundaries with me. And so, and I don't cross none with them.
mm,
I don't play any of those kind of games. But I knew I had to say, okay, I guess that's not my journey. And I'm okay with it.
yeah.
And that's what's important. I have to keep going back to you got to know who you are in God's eyesight. Because
Okay.
what he wants for you, he's going to give it to you.
Mm,
I admire every woman that's married. I admire you. I know it's not easy.
yeah.
I know it's not. But I also know it's a blessing,
Mhm.
you
That
know. And it's still a blessing when you're a single woman.
that part. That part. That part.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna tell you what my first lady used to teach us at Living Word.
Mhm.
You know, everybody say they want to be married. You don't know what you're asking for. Sometimes you don't even understand what it takes.
Yeah.
You see a part of that marriage of, oh, they doing all of this and doing, you don't know any of that,
Yeah.
So, stop asking for stuff you don't understand.
Mhm.
So, I ain't really asked for it because it would come to me.
Yeah.
When, like I said, I was engaged twice. But I would say, God, if that's what you want me to have, I'm gonna have it. If you'll have it, because I'll stop something in a New York minute.
Mm,
Oh no, this ain't gonna work because this is an indication of what my marriage is gonna be like. Oh no, we ain't gonna do all of that.
yeah.
So that is why I'm not. If I hope I answered your question, and I'm cool with it,
Yeah.
and I'm comfortable in who I am, and no one gets to tell me who I am.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. if appropriate or God approved person entered your life now, would you entertain the
Absolutely.
You would? Okay.
Absolutely.
I like it. That's good. I love that. And I love that I love what you said about us being whole regardless of marriage. I
Absolutely.
think sometimes like I've got single friends and single relatives, and everything you said is so true. Particularly what your first lady said as well. Like we are a whole person regardless if we get married. That doesn't make us incomplete or lacking. And what I'm finding is a lot of times it's because women don't want to settle or they don't want to get into a relationship or a marriage and then end up in divorce because they saw the red flags before they got married.
Yeah, you know.
So I love that. But I especially love what the first lady said because I hear, some of my friends who say they have that desire, but when you have experienced adulthood, especially for a significant amount of time single, you're giving up a whole lot to get married.
Yes,
So
baby.
it's different when you're young and you get married because you haven't really established a whole lot yet. But after you have fully established yourself, and I'm not talking only about finances, I'm talking about living independently and what all that allows you and what it will not once you're married.
Yes.
You gotta
I know what you're talking about.
yeah, you think you want it, and again, I love marriage. This is what I do,
Yes.
right? So you
Yeah.
know I love marriage, but at the same time, I love realism. I love
There you go.
for people to be honest with themselves and ask themselves the hard questions, whether married or not. So yeah, so tell me if that guy came up, that handsome, godly man came up to you and said, "Yeah, I want to be with you. I think I want to be with you for the rest of my life." The name of the show is Wife for Life. What would you say a wife for life looks like? Or even better, what type of wife for life do you want to be? If God blesses you with that.
Oh man, that's a loaded question. Uh, and let me go back to another point I want to add.
Mhm.
When women, for some reason, I don't know where they got this from because it's definitely not in the Bible. You think because you're not married, something's wrong or you're not whole. My question would be, who's telling you that? Who's telling you that you're not whole because you don't have a husband? Who's telling you that? And there's nothing wrong with understanding that they have a great marriage and that's good. And I'm single and I'm enjoying my single life. And just like I said, when you have built a lot, and it's just not like, financial, but just like life. I got it real good over here. But so we gotta understand what we really want and who we are.
Yeah.
And that takes me to answer your question. A wife of life takes a lot of endurance, of understanding that there is ups and downs in
Mhm.
any relationships or seasons of this and a season of that. But guess what? There's ups and downs in my single life.
Yep.
There's seasons in my life. It's just the difference is you're probably doing it with someone else, with your husband,
Mhm.
the seasons that you're going through. And sometimes individually, one person may be on another season in their life and your marriage, and you could be at another season. Again, we all have the same thing.
Mhm.
It's just you have to do it. You're doing it with somebody else.
Yeah.
And so being a wife for life means I'm in it to the end. So I got to go through it with you,
Yeah.
or he got to go through it with you. And we got to understand it's a lot of compromise, all of this stuff. It's a lot of communication, a lot of development, and everybody is growing. I am not the same. I just said I was 58 going up 50. I am not the same person I was in my 20s,
Yeah.
in my 30s, and my 40s. I'm not.
Mhm.
And that is the growth that God does. So imagine that if you're in a relationship, right? If you got married really young and then you've been, 30, 40 years in a marriage, all the growth, the individual growth, the growth together as a marriage, all that happens, but it still happens to
Yes.
me and others. And so, but you got to know what you're in for.
Mm.
As she was teaching us at Living Word is, you don't know what you're asking for.
Yeah.
But you got to be ready for it. Because it's not a cakewalk. I'm not saying it's hard. I'm not saying, again, I ain't never been married, but it's a relationship.
Yes.
It's two people
Yeah.
growing and developing. I don't have to be married to understand that. That's
Yeah.
just common sense.
Mm.
And you don't know what God is going to do in the journey of the unit. But he can still do the same thing when you're not in a unit and still bless you. Look at
Yeah.
the women in the Bible. Powerful. Esther. Are you kidding me? And so I had to make a decision if someone comes in my life, but what does that look like? God, what do you want me to do? Because I'm not, I listen, I keep telling you, I don't have, I don't have to go out here chasing no man to say, I got to find a husband.
Yeah.
I could have said yes to a whole lot of other people.
Right.
I'm not, listen.
No, I get it.
I mean, come on now.
It is
If that was my desire. And so we got to watch what we're desiring because you're not prepared for what you're desiring. You
Yeah.
want it because you see something else. It is work into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. It's work.
Yeah. And speaking of desire, we sometimes desire to be married, but don't desire to be a wife.
Say that again.
Sometimes we desire to be married, but we don't desire to be a wife.
Which is two different things. Two totally different things.
Yep.
It really is. And we get this, and I think I may have said this to you when because I love you. Because I too have seen you grow. And I remember the first day we sat down and you and I know we meet, and when we meet, it is us talking about supporting or help and guidance or whatever we do. And then it's always kept between us two. And you know that because and I said, I know that's an assignment from God. I said, you don't need any other thing that you think is accolades or whatever, what the world thinks you need, other words. But get what you're supposed to have. That's great.
Mhm.
But don't ever think that you need more. And the reason why I had said that then, and I'm still saying now, because I knew that was an assignment.
Yeah.
When you told me what you were getting ready to do, and look at God.
Amen.
And look at God.
Yeah.
Because I say all that to say is, I'm not married, but I watch stuff and see things. You're trying to make a mockery of something that he has anointed.
Mm.
Marriages.
Mm.
It's in the Bible.
Come on.
You're trying to make a mockery of that, a joke of that. You either have to take it serious to understand there's a difference in that one day
Yeah.
than for life, wife
Yeah.
for life. It's one day. So it's not about how much money I spend on the wedding. It's not about how beautiful. Listen, I love nice things. I really do. But that dress, I don't care if it costs $10 or $1,000 or $1 million. That means nothing to God.
Mm-mm.
Can you be a wife like you just said?
Mm-hmm.
Can you be a wife after you take that dress off?
Mm.
Can you leave the singleness behind you after I said I do? You can't be still going out with your single girlfriends to the club. Okay, I'm just saying, to the club. I don't go to the club. And I got just as many friends who are married, I got just as many that are single, powerful women. I have them both. And I have never interfered in nobody's relationship, whether you're single or married.
Yeah.
I was just raised that way. But that's just common sense to me. I don't get involved in nothing. I ain't no specialist in anything. I don't even care if you tell me your business. I'm just going to look at y'all. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. Anyway. Right. Because I understand what it means to be living as a single woman, just like I respect and understand what it means to live like a married woman. It is two different lifestyles.
Amen. Amen. Well, doctor,
know. Right?
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode.
I know.
And introducing and look, giving all the team.
I know.
I love it. And who doesn't want to hear about your experience with the Stedman Graham? So listen, thank you for being willing to share your journey.
Yes.
Thank you for all the hard work that you put forth. Thank you for your humbleness, because I don't know how you don't see yourself as a mover and a shaker, but you are. I'm declaring it right now here on the Wife for Life podcast. And thank you guys for watching, for listening, for coming a part of my community and checking out what these phenomenal 52 women have to say and have to share. I hope you learned. I hope you grew. I hope you felt supported and connected. And if you did, I hope that you shared this podcast with a friend. Like, subscribe, follow. Y'all, come on. Be in this partnership with your girl. Until next time, thank you for joining another episode of Wife for Life. And in the meantime, happy loving.